as we're working on something else, Claude will start doing its thing, and basically it saves us so much time there. I'm a paralegal here at Solinsky and Company. My name is Christy Lugo, and I started using Claude around the same time that Dan has. He honestly introduced me to it, and it's been such a huge help. Some ways that Claude has really saved me a lot of time is in the fact that we use Dialpad for our phone system, and it creates a transcript of any intakes that we do. And then we're able to upload that transcript into Claude, and then it'll create a case in our system, Cleo. That itself takes so much time to do ourselves if we're putting in all this information, email address, phone number, all of the details of a case, whereas we'll get the transcript from our phone call and then we're able to just have it put in by itself. As we're working on something else, Claude will start doing its thing, and basically it saves us so much time there.
That's pretty cool.
I don't know what else to
That's
say.
fine.
Do you want to say, because obviously there's a lot of lawyers that have gotten in trouble with using AI, right? I
Oh
think
yeah.
a lot of
So
it just comes
yeah,
down to like not looking over things and not reviewing things. I
right.
don't know if Christy, if you can talk a little bit about how important it is to still look over the final things that come out of Claude.
Okay. So another thing that once it does upload everything into our system, Clio, I'm always sure to double check everything. Like I mentioned to Dan all the time, I like to dot the I's, cross the T's when it comes to any documents that it drafts, because just formatting as well, like I like things a certain way. I like everything to look perfect. So anything that it drafts, I will always double check and just make sure that in the case of formatting, as well as any errors like spelling wise, make sure everything is accurate. If it's going to reference any case laws or anything like that, we need to make sure everything is accurately mentioned there. So that's something that I'll always double check. I'll always, if I have any questions, I'll ask Dan, but that's very important to do instead of just thinking it's perfect and filing. You always have to check.
Let's you want to start talking about some of the more practical stuff. We can start maybe with
Sure.
talking about
So
intake.
yeah, but so basically what I'm looking for is I already have the system, right? I have Clio. And Clio is a great repository for storing summons and complaints, storing medical records, storing the data. And it does have its own, internal structure in terms of how to set up intakes. But personally, I find it very time consuming. There's so much you have to check and double check. There's so much that you need to make sure that's put in place. So one of the first things that Masai showed me how to do was create an API. Was it MCP or an API between an API between Clio and Claude? And from my understanding, and the limited understanding that I have in this, is that that API is merely a connection for two apps to speak back channel to each other and for things to go quickly. You don't need an API in order to use Claude with Clio. And by the way, when I say Claude, I mean Claude Cowork, not just Claude itself. You actually need at least a minimal paid subscription to Claude Cowork, which is at a minimum $20 a month. I personally have upped mine in order to get the most usage out of it, but I've used it for myself. I've given it to my staff, and it's been amazing what it can do. But the first thing we did, and Masai can teach you how to do this, is to set up an API between Claude and Clio so that they can speak to each other, and there's seamless integration. Then, what was important to me was the intake process. Basically, what I was doing was I was going into Claude Cowork and initially just typing in literally what I would put in an intake. I type in the name of the client, the date of the accident, where the accident happened, social security numbers, dates of birth, addresses, injuries, claim numbers, and things like that. And I literally just press send. Oh, actually, what I do is, and this is something for me, I don't know if it's necessary, but I always write at the end, interview me for any questions. And that way, Claude will turn to me and say, hey, you're missing this, or did you mean this when you said this? And it's intuitive enough to be able to focus on those questions. In terms of the level of Claude for the intakes, I either use Sonnet or Opus. Opus if it's a little bit more difficult. I don't think you need something like Fable, which is the highest search engine activity that they have there. But for my purposes, I think Sonnet will do the trick, possibly Opus. One of the things that Masai showed me how to do was, I was wasting a lot of time typing. Actually, that's one of the first things that I can do well. And he introduced me to this other app called Whisper or Whisper Flow. And in that, I literally just talk into my microphone, and it types everything that I need for me very clearly into the Claude chat, and it will literally generate a new case and all of the information that I've given it, as well as a new skill that Masai helped me build, which is not only will it create this case in Clio, but as long as I fed it the right templates and as long as I've given it the right examples, it will also automatically create documents. It'll automatically create a retainer. It'll automatically create filled out HIPAA authorizations. It will automatically create no fault applications for New York State. That's very important to have these things. Once that's done, I can use Clio to send those out to my client or have them printed in the office if the client wants to meet me in the office so that we can sign them and get going. Additionally, part of the skill is that it will generate tasks to our paralegal to make sure that these things are sent to the client, make sure that the retainer statements, which are required in New York State, are filed immediately. If there is a referring attorney, to make sure that the referring attorney has the information and a letter to them, a thank you letter, if you will. It basically puts the case in. It sets up automatic timelines. It sets up automatic timelines for when I need to contact the client next, when I need to request medical records and things like that.
It's also really cool because at the end of the day, you're the person that knows your practice the best, right? So obviously, you can always hire someone to help you do things, but I think once you sort of have an understanding of how co-work works, how to build skills and things like that, no one's going to be better at building skills for your law firm than you are, right? You're the one that works in it every day. So I think
Absolutely. And one of the things that, I was a little bit afraid of was kind of losing control and losing, oversight over the documents that come in. And every now and then there will be an error. So all of this needs to be reviewed. All of it needs to be checked. For the most part, it gets everything right. But every now and then, I'll give you an example. We have an outstanding paralegal here named Christy. And when you file a claim in New York State, when you file a summons and complaint, you have to spell out the person's name unless it's a minor. If it's a minor, you can only put the initials. And I prepared a summons and complaint, not even really realizing that the plaintiff in this case was a minor. And then Christy made the catch where, she placed the initials instead of having the full name there before we sent it through for processing. So there is, always the potential for error, and that's why it's always important to look at what you have. But the amount of time it would take for me to do an intake from beginning to end is I probably use about 10% of that. I probably reduce the time that I'm on it by about 90%. And I'm at 10% of the time that I used. And as a solo practitioner, time is money, time is important. And I'm glad I got that done.
All right, you want to go ahead and jump into the intake stuff?
Sure. The first thing that we did was the first thing that Masai had me do, and I thought this was genius, although at the time I didn't, but now I do,
Yes.
is to do what's commonly known among us as a brain dump, right? And when we did that, the first thing I did was literally get the whisper flow, speak into the whisper flow, and just talk about what I wanted to see happen. And initially, when I started talking about it, it was a little bit protective. I was just very careful about some of the things I said about the practice, how I wanted to see it. And I had a plan going forward. And literally, what happened was it organized all my thoughts. I put it into Claude. It organized all of my thoughts, and it put it into like one roadmap, which I thought was amazing. But the truth is, once I saw that roadmap, then other ideas started coming into play. So I kind of scrapped that first roadmap and I came up with this other one, and I did another brain dump into the whisper flow. and started talking about this sort of idea that I had to like sort of color coordinate my practice in terms of the different pillars, meaning like that I do motor vehicle, that I do premises, and that I do construction law, and then the different stages of each of all those portions of the practice. Once I got comfortable with whisper flow and once I had an idea of exactly what to do, Masai helped me build protocols, right, for each one of the cases. So for motor vehicle cases, I basically said, okay, from here on in, if I'm going to do an intake, this is what I want to see happen. I want to see all of the information put into Claude. I want to see all of the information into the right folders to break down each folder, where each case should go. And I gave it a couple of examples of samples that I used on other intakes.